I love FastAPI. It's one of the best backend frameworks on the market. I also love Claude Code. It's one of the best agentic coding tools available right now. Everywhere you look, people are talking about how AI will soon write 90% of all code, leaving software engineers to guide the tools instead of typing everything themselves. So I decided to put that idea to the test. Could I use Claude Code to write an entire FastAPI project without touching any code myself? And no, I'm not just talking about a toy project, but professional grade applications, something that you'd expect to see in the real world. Think of a URL shortener, but built with serious security and structure baked in. So that's what we're gonna try and build in this project. Now, these kind of applications literally cost like over $100 a year, and we're gonna try to build it right now in Claude Code using FastAPI. All right, so let's start by going over what it's going to look like, right? Well, we're going to have our user browser. This is what is going to be the UI that the user is going to be typing in. We are also going to have our FastAPI application. Now, our FastAPI application is going to be like where all of our business logic lives. And then we're going to have our database layer, right? And this is where we are going to have all of the URL shortenings, analytics, everything that we need to make sure that this is a proper application. Now we're going to create a diagram, and we're just going to kind of make some lines right here. This is the flow of what's going to happen. Number one is we need to make a call to FastAPI from our user browser, right? And this is going to be the post call of /shorten, where we're going to pass in a long URL, and we are expecting it to shorten it somehow. Well, the next step is going to be number two, which is going to be to validate the URL. We need to make sure that, hey, this URL is validated. We don't want to just waste time doing something that's not validated. We then want to go ahead and go to 3, which is to generate our URL, which is going to be our short URL. And then we want to go to step 4, which is to store links. So this is going to be how we store links into our database. And each one of these are going to be arrows from FastAPI to our database, just simply saying that, hey, the application business logic is happening in the FastAPI layer, and then we're going to be saving that stuff to the database. Lastly, so this should be 4. And then lastly, what we want to do is have 5 right here, which is just return short URL to the front end, right? This is going to be the last step for this endpoint. We want to have a user browser, FastAPI, go to the database, and then return that stuff. And we want all of this handled, right, by Claude Code. We want all of this handled by Claude Code. And there's going to be 2 more calls. So this is going to be like our shortening flow. And we are also going to have our URL redirection and our analytics flow. So if we go ahead and look at what our URL redirection flow would look like, we're going to have something similar. We're going to have our browser. And we're also going to have, again, our FastAPI, and we are also going to have our database again, right? And what we're going to be doing here now is similar things where we are going to have to do some calls. So step 1 is going to be a GET request of our short code, where we are now expecting to get the long code back. So once we get that, we need to go ahead and say, then we need to find the link based on the short code, track click for analytics purposes, and then finally redirect the user with long, right? And it's going to look something like this, where this is going to be calling there. This is going to be calling here. This is also going to be calling here, and then we're going to return what we get back from the database right back to the browser. So the user gets the short code, redirect to the long code, and then that's it. Now, the big thing we want to see here is this track click. This is going to be the analytics happening again, all built by Claude Code. So the analytics standpoint is going to be a little bit simpler. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and just delete this real quick. And what we're going to say here now is we want to have a get stats of that specific code clicked. So get stats of the code clicked. We want to then be able to query those stats, which is going to be the short code. And then lastly, we want to return those analytics so people can see how many times each link was clicked. And it's going to look something like that. Boom, boom, boom. And this is step 1, step 2, step 3. Again, all handled by Claude Code. Now, I already have this all wrote in something called a Claude MD file, which is explaining to Claude how we want Claude Code to operate and create our application. Now, there's going to be a lot more information in there, but this is just a very good starting point to say, hey, this is the application we're trying to create. These are the 3 main focuses. I'm not talking about the database schema. I'm not talking about the database architecture or security architecture. I'm going to let Claude Code figure all that out, but I am giving it a very strong understanding of the application we're trying to build. With that, let's go ahead and now jump into the code. All right, so what we're going to have here is I already set up our project using UV. Now, UV is probably the best Python dependency manager there is. It just allows us to be able to set up our project really, really quick and really, really easy. I already have our virtual environment set up with FastAPI. We have a git ignore that comes with a bunch of different items like our PyCache and stuff like that we don't want to check into Git. Our README file has quite a bit of stuff, and then our UV lock. Now, one thing I skipped over was our Claude MD. This is going to have so much information about what we want Claude to do to build our application. So this file provides guidance to Claude Code. Now, your Claude MD is really kind of like your memory for Claude. It's going to be looking at this and making sure that this is in the context as it goes ahead and creates our entire application from scratch. So we can see inside our project overview, we have 1 responsibility per model, type hints everywhere, rough, black, and MyPy. Our tech choice is going to be Python, FastAPI, Uvicorn, SQL Alchemy, Alembic, Pydantic v2, JWT with PyJWT, logging, and we're going to have some data models, and then it talks about our API contracts. So we have our happy paths and our error. We're going to have a couple different endpoints. So these are going to be all of our post requests right here, and then followed by our GET requests, which we're going to have 2 of. So we're going to have a shorten, which shortens the long URL to shorten. Then it has our short, which redirects us to the long URL. And then we have this GET stats, which is for all of our analytics. Lastly, we have some front end that we want to implement, some security, because we want to follow professional security measures to make sure our application is safe, health checks for observability, performance, testing strategy, which is simply saying like, hey, we want to make sure that we run a PyTest and add tests after every single step that is implemented. And then we have some configurations for our .env, migration, README, how I want you to work, which is talking to Claude. And it just kind of goes on about being really, really in depth about creating the best application possible. Now, to start, we can open up our Claude. I have this over here because I added an extension. So I have an extension called Claude Code right there. This is already going to be inside our Claude MD, which we can see right here, and it's going to follow everything. So let's just start by asking Claude Code what it thinks about our Claude MD. So I simply said, how is the Claude MD? So look at our Claude MD file. It doesn't make any sense for you to get started, and do not write any code right now. So if we look at it right here, looking at the file, it's very well structured and comprehensive for getting started on this URL shortener project. Here's my assessment. There's a lot of strengths. There's some areas that are particularly helpful, some minor observations about like how to get through Git, and the instructions are very thorough, almost like a specification document. This gives me everything I need to know. So what we want to do is make sure that Claude plans all the steps first. One thing I've noticed is if you plan, and you can plan just by telling Claude to plan, Claude will give you significantly better results when it actually goes into code implementation. So all I'm going to start by saying is, let's start with a plan. Do not write any code. Now from here, I want to say, create me a step-by-step plan for to-dos and phases that can be done to complete our project. I want you to be completely thorough in this deep dive. So I'm going to send that. And here it's just going to start diving in and really trying to put together all of our context from our Claude MD and the context from our code, which we don't have any code yet, and trying to create a structured plan to be able to build this project. All right, so let's see what it has. Here's a comprehensive step-by-step plan broken down into 14 distinct phases. Now that's what's really important about trying to break this down into phases is we now have it broken down into 14 phases. Now these 14 phases is going to be really good because Claude will be able to go through like one phase at a time and give us the final approval before proceeding to the next phase. Now, the only thing I want to change here is we have this front end templates as phase 7 through 9. I want to make sure that the front end's last. Please move the front end implementation to the end. I want only back end complete first. So I said, please move the front end implementation to the end. I want only the back end to complete first. And look what we have here. So not only do we have 14 phases, we have a bunch of possibilities here where we can really have critical success factors where we're going to have security. We're going to have really good, strong IP hashing, JWT. This is going to be a really, really good project by the end of it. All right. So we redid this. Now we're up to 16 phases where we've broken up the 14 into a completely different front-end implementation phase. And then our back-end is going to be right here. So this is all looking really, really good. Now what I'm going to tell it to do, so I said for each time you change the code, I need to do a PyTest to make sure old code is working properly and that the new code does not break anything. Always write new tests for new code wrote, and that you can think of this as a hook. So it's saying we're going to do that. Understood. I'll follow this testing for every single thing. And now I'm going to say proceed with step 1. Proceed with phase 1 development. Now, what's really good about this is if we open up our diagram, we have Claude Code at the very top, right? So we have Claude Code at the very top. Claude Code is the brain, and we are passing in context of all different types, right? So this is going to be our context that's getting passed in. We also have all of our code getting passed in also. And with our context, our code, and our MD file, our Claude Code will be able to ship out code that matches all of our specification. And that's what's really, really important about using Claude Code. It's all about the context going in. And you're going to be hearing a lot of things about context engineering because that is what it's all about. It's all about the context that goes into Claude Code so it can produce the best code that it possibly can. So now it's going to tell us, hey, we made some changes, run existing tests. Now, typically, I do say yes to everything unless it's certain types of commands like deleting items. So I'm just going to say yes, and that'll help with a lot of the items right here. But what it's trying to say now is, hey, it's trying to get an error because PyTest is not installed yet. So it's going to go ahead and add PyTest to UV, I would assume. Yeah, initializing Python proxy structure with UV, which would be really good. Now, our application is going to look pretty standard. We're going to have a front end once we get to that implementation. Our front end is going to talk to our back end. And our back end, again, is just going to be our FastAPI application. So we're going to have that with our back end. And then really, Claude Code is going to be dishing all the data into backend at first until we say this is all complete. And then it's going to start creating the front end until we say that's complete. So this is going to be working perfect with exactly what we want. I'm going to say yes, allow everything for this setup. It's now going through a lot of our different areas. And really, this is a really, really important thing when dealing with any type of application. Using Claude Code is becoming the standard in so many different ways, and it's really, really awesome and powerful to see. All right, so it's saying phase 1 is complete. So we have initialized all of the applications with the UV dependency. So we have FastAPI, SQL Alchemy, Pydantic, testing, all the information that we need. Our development tool of Rough, Black, MyPy is all configured. We have PyTest, quality control in place. This all looks good. I'm going to give it a big check mark. So the foundation is solved with Python 3.13, which is what we want. Quality control, testing is ready, environment, and development workflow. So saying when you're ready, we can proceed with phase 2. If we go ahead and we just kind of look at everything real quick, we can see that we have a .claude, which has our settings. We have a PyTest, Rough, tests, which has nothing in it. We have our V&V, which was already created, and everything else looks... Why do I have a new... I don't know why we have a new one of those. I'm just going to delete that. Cool. All right. I'm going to say proceed to phase 2. Onwards. So this is going to be the core application structure. So we should probably create a new project folder, maybe like app or API, which has our controllers, our service, which is our business logic, a lot of the information in the head. So I'm curious to see what is actually implemented during this phase. All right, so what did it do here? So we have our application structure. So we're right here in our apps. We have our API models and services. They're all completely empty, but it's just saying that we created the proper module organization. We have our Pydantic settings with environment variables. Maybe somewhere in here, one of these. Interesting. So what's going on here? We have our settings for our Pydantic, environmental structure, database connection layer. All right. I can get behind what I see here. What else we got going on? Comprehensive testing, 30 test cases were added. So all of our tests for our config, in case someone changes one of our configs, and our code quality with all linting. So I'm going to say proceed with phase 3. All right, so phase 3, if we remember what phase 3 is, it is now going to be implementing all of the database modules and migration. So it's going to be setting up our SQL Alchemy models for links and clicks, which is going to be for the analytics. So we have our analytics right here. Analytics. And then we have our Olympic setup and migration. So this is for when we need to change database stuff. So we can just say like DB stuff. And then we have our DB operations and migrations, which is the same thing. Oh, these are the test. So this is going to be the same thing for that, just making sure that everything passes, which is really cool. So we're going to say continue on making all the changes that you need. And one thing I really like about using Claude Code, and this actually works with all of them, but especially Claude Code, is I just love watching all these files get built out. I mean, it is pretty magnificent just watching all of this code get generated. And it really comes down to what I believe the main idea of software engineers are going to be writing less code, right? Because AI is going to be writing the code, but it's still up to the engineer to create the right MD file, making sure everything is configured right. And we're going to make sure at the very end of this that the application is actually working. And I think it takes a lot of effort to make sure everything is connected. And I have no idea, like all the code that is generating. It takes an engineer to go through all this. And this is a prototype and a side project, but this is not something that you would just want to, completely just submit and, make a PR off of. And maybe in a future video, I'll kind of show how we can use Claude Code as a PR reviewer on GitHub and some other Git repositories. But you really want to make sure that you know exactly what's getting passed inside here. All right, now just look at this line right here. Perfect. All tests passed. Let's mark phase 3 as complete. That's insane. We're saying everything looks good here. We're having all the database set up, and now we're ready for phase 4, which is the core API endpoints. I'm just going to go ahead and just say proceed since all of our tests are passing. And could be making a major mistake. We'll find out once we run our application at the end. But this is really, really cool stuff. I'm really curious to see what the core API endpoints are going to look like once they're built. And we're going to kind of dive into those as well. And now while it's creating the test, let's go ahead and just look at the endpoints that it's creating. So it's creating all of these links endpoints. So right here, we can see that it's creating our shorten, which is going to be, I'm just going to close that for now. We have our post shorten, which takes in a link response. I want to make sure that this, still running all the tests. Create a shortened URL. Arguments is all this. Looks good. Look at all this code. Look at all these comments. And that's one thing that I really like about Claude Code. And I know some of the other ones do it a little bit too, but I think Claude Code does it best, is that it has these comments. And we can see there's a link service. So where do we, in here, link service? I like this. I like what I'm seeing. I'm excited to try it out at the end to see if everything looks good. But this is a lot of code. This is a lot of code happening really, really fast. All right, it's saying all of our code and Pydantic schemas are created with now 49 tests passing. If we wanted to look at all of this now and we want to look at our services, we can see our link service, which has a lot of good stuff going on here. But the biggest thing is going to be our tests, right? Let's see how our tests are looking. API links tests. So we're going to say we are going to create a test for this. Let's just open up terminal. Claude Code. There we go. PyTest. Yeah, everything passes. This is really all we can really believe right now, right? Is all of our tests. I'm going to tell our Claude Code to proceed while we investigate the old tests. So in here, we can see all of our old tests. Also, that was unbelievably fast. So test create short link where we have our test client, test DB. We're passing in our post of shorten. We're going to pass in a very long URL. Assert equals 6. Ends with short code. Okay, I think that looks fine. Verify in database link equals this link based on the short code to find the first, none. Assert the long is still this very long URL. All right. This, from a quick view, looks okay to me. I don't know. I think people just say, LFG and proceeds looks good to LGTM looks good to me. I think this is all looking decent. We're implementing. Next phase is authentication. That'll be a good one to see how that happens. But let's create the tests for the click tracking and stats functionality. Now this will be interesting because it's all the data analytics, right? The data analytics is going to be really interesting because that's going to be one of the main parts of a URL shortener. So if we look at what like a URL shortener is on the outside, the URL shortener has a couple different things. So if we just said this is going to be the URL shortener, there's really going to be two main things. This and right here is going to be long URL to short. Kind of think of that as the main thing. And the other one is going to be analytics for that URL shortener. And what that means is we need to know how many times people click this link, and we want to show the analytics. And now the analytics can have a whole bunch of different information. It really depends on what we want to show and kind of different things. Like Bitly will show a whole bunch of information, right? But we might want to just show a little bit of analytics, like who clicks on the link, maybe with a browser, how many unique users, things like that. And I think all of that information is really needed inside an analytics application for a URL shortener. And what's really cool is like Bitly's like over $100 a month. $100 a year. A lot of these applications that, main objective is hundreds of dollars. And if this works, we're essentially doing it in an hour. I'm not sure what this video is going to be at the end, but something like that. That's really cool. That's really interesting and really powerful. And we're doing that, I guess, with $100 a month subscription on Claude Max. So I guess that equals out the yearly cost, but really cool how many applications we could just build. And I'm really excited to see how this turns out. All right. And all the tests are complete for analytics. What's that? I wonder what that means. How many tests we have now? It's going to be really 63. My goodness. So if we say PyTest right here, it's going to be 63. That's so many. Now, I know those can be so dumb. Like they could just be like asserts. But let's see. I'm just going to say just proceed to 6. This is really what it's going to get very interesting. We're implementing JWTs, and it's going to be using PyJWT, and that's the library that allows you to do it. Fairly easy, and I doubt it's going to be doing refresh and, token caching and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure it's just going to be simple, create a JWT, authorize it, but I'm interested to see how it works. Like right here, we're already adding PyJWT crypto, which is what we want to add. Excited to see how it works. Like now we're going to use our model. We're probably going to use Alembic and everything like that. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this works. And phase 7 of security and production features of rate limiting cores, IP hashing, health checks. IP hashing is where I would assume the app's going to start breaking. But maybe not. Maybe this is going to surprise me. I use Claude Code every single day. I use it in professionally. I use it for videos right here. It's a really, really powerful tool. Now, Claude Code does have some competitors, and maybe I'll create some videos on the competitors. And if you have a powerful enough machine, you can run some of these competitors locally. Like I have a 64 gigabyte RAM Mac Studio. I'll add that. I'll maybe create some videos in the future for that specifically. And now real quick, I'm jumping back in because this is what's interesting, right? So right here, it says, hey, I need to fix issues in the utils.py file. Let me correct them. And it starts updating all those files. The only reason that's happening is because up here, it's trying to run our tests, right? And we just caught an error, and it's doing this by running our PyTests. Now, why this is interesting is because this wouldn't have been caught if we didn't have our PyTest hook post hook involved, right? Because after every code change, it needs to run these tests before it can tell us it's done. If you didn't have that in there, it would tell us that it was done. And it's having trouble fixing it right now, which is quite interesting. I'm curious to see what's getting changed because we can see right here that they're having trouble. I just saw it pop up somewhere. Let me fix the bidantic property. Okay, it's changing a lot of stuff. I don't know if I like everything is changing. Fix the rate limiting test to handle the cases. Luckily and not luckily, I guess, is we're changing all the code. We're changing code in our tests file. Now, the good thing is we're not just changing business logic in our applications, trying to change the business logic to find how it can work, then trying to write tests for it to see how it all works. We're now able to just fix it all in the tests. But what's interesting is the fact that you don't want to be just making the tests easier to pass. And I'm curious to see if Claude Code is going to just try and make it easier to pass. Great. Most tests are passing now. Let me fix the remaining issues. The localized test isn't raising an exception because of settings. So it's doing rate limiting. It's running into a rate limiting error when we're on test versus prod. Yeah, so that's the biggest issue is that it's running into an error with rate limiting. So rate limiting is how many times you can send a request before we're like, whoa, you're not allowed anymore. And a lot of that is due to, you can think of it like making sure that you're not going to get like attacked or hacked or someone's like a bad actors out there just clicking submit a bunch of times and trying to see if they can break the application or making a bunch of users. It's about being able to prohibit all that and keep it under control. So you might be able to say like, you can make 10 requests per minute of a certain request, or maybe only 3, or maybe 1 per minute, or 1 every 5 minutes. It's a way for us to really make sure that bad actors don't have the ability just to be able to click a whole bunch of times on something. All right, so it's saying test 7 is complete. The remaining linting issues are B008 warnings about using depends and function parameters. Actually, it's correct. Interesting. Let's see how many tests it says is complete at the end of this. 121 tests pass. Oh my goodness. PyTest. All right, we will just proceed. Front end. I thought front end was like 11 to 14. What? What are all the phases we have left? As I thought it was like 9 through like 14 was like front end. I thought we like broke it up. Ready to proceed with phase 8 front end implementation. 7 of 9 complete. Back end is 100% complete. So we should be able to run our application, right? So if we say UV run, Uvicorn main :app. All right, here it is. /docs. Why is only one endpoint exposed? What the? I run our application. Only 2 endpoints are exposed on Swagger. Health and... Is that just like our normal git? It's our normal /root. What? Come on, Claude Code. Let me check, see what's happening with our endpoints exposures. Could be related to how the routers are included in our docs configuration. Photosynthesizing. I love these names, by the way. These are hilarious. Let me check. I see the issue. The routers are being included correctly, but they might be in an issue with the docs being disabled in production mode. Let me check what environment you're running. Ah, yes. The environment is correctly set to deployment. So, interesting. The routes are being registered correctly. I can see boom, boom, boom. Auth routes aren't included, which is correct. The issue might be that when you're showing the routes that are directly defined by your health, but not, that's fine. No, let's just proceed. I'm just going to believe you. And I believe you. Proceed with the next phase of front-end development. So what it's telling me is I think in here somewhere we're specifying, maybe in config, right here. So we're specifying what environment we're running. And I think by default, it's running prod. We'll see what Claude says at the end of this. But what we want to be able to do is run a front-end application and make sure that everything works and is connected completely to our back-end application. What's cool about this is we did specify for it to use Bootstrap. That's just to make it easier, so we don't have to deal with CSS. But we are changing root endpoints since root is now handled by the web router. And that's because we're using the web router because like probably the default path is for our front end. So we're adding API / whatever it is so we can easily be able to follow exactly what we're getting developed. I'm still nervous about all these tests. I feel like these tests can really be the end of if our application's actually safe or not. Because if the tests are just BS, and I'm kind of looking through the tests right now. We look at the auth service, password test 1, 2, 3, hash. We're going to hash it. We're then going to hash the same exact thing on 2. Assert 1 should be the same. Assert 1 length of hash 1 should equal 64 characters. Auth service hash pass, different hash password. That should not be equal. I mean, that looks pretty decent. I mean, we're not doing any kind of timestamps or anything, but like what's in our hash password? Pass in a password. Salt password. Oh, we're salting by our IP. Hash salt. Interesting. Where's that at? Then encode. That's not a bad way of doing it. That's not a bad way of doing it at all. Interesting. Right after I got done talking about how it's using Bootstrap, it's now creating a CSS file for custom styles. I wonder what the custom styles are that's going to be implementing. Where the heck is that? So we have our app. Is it inside here? There it is. Static CSS, main.css. Oh my gosh. Did it just do all of this? Is it? It created a... Did it create a CSS clone and not just use Bootstrap? Oh no, it's using Bootstrap. What the heck is it doing? Okay. Now create me a main JavaScript file for front-end functionality. Okay, so this right here is able to call all of our FastAPI endpoints, which is exactly what we needed because we said for our Jinja front-end, which is going to be using JavaScript to be able to call our FastAPI through API endpoints, not through just server-side rendering, but through API endpoints, which is exactly what we want. Now let's create a simple test template file to verify the front-end works. All right, do your thing. It's a web client, creating a new client. Now let me build the front-end test to make sure everything works. So what are they using for tests here? They're still using PyTest. The front-end tests are passing. I need to fix the deprecation warnings with template response. Interesting. Yep, that's exactly what we want. We want to pass in the request through our router. Yep, that's exactly what we want. We want to pass in our request so we can pull any information out of it if needed with our stats, with our HTML files and our context. Create a token. JWT token. Okay. Interesting. Error editing file, web.py. So our web.py file, oh, this is kind of cool. Our web.py file is what we're using for all of our routes to run our Jinja. So we can see that they all have template responses. I really like that setup. It kind of makes all the front-end components and front-end code all sit together while all the Python code. Now, we probably could create like a new folder. What I would do is I would create a new folder and kind of make it look React-ish, where I'd have like a main render file that's going to be templates and reusability, and then we're going to have components inside. But I kind of like this. I mean, as a prototype, if I mean, this isn't my this isn't my application, but it's for YouTube. I mean, it's still like very cool. I mean, like a junior engineer could write up an MD file and keep saying okay, and just see what happens. Now it takes someone with more experience to know if crap comes out, crap comes in, crap comes out. But this is all not looking terribly bad overall. I'm not going to lie. This is not looking terribly bad overall. All right. So it's telling us that everything looks good here. I'm just going to run it. So I'm going to ask it, how do I run the app in my own terminal to try out? Let's just see how it goes. We don't want to yet. Why does it say setting up Docker and deployment? Like, that's not what I want to do yet. So go here, run this app. Yep. That's exactly it. Okay, I just want to make sure I was not doing anything crazy. Well, you'll see, boom, 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 optional set up a database. Okay, optional set up a database. That is a requirement, but let's go back to here. All right. Transform long URLs into short URLs, perfect for social media, emails, anything space matters. So enter your long. I'm going to say https://www.codingwithroby.com. Let's go ahead and say shorten URL. All right, I'm on Google. I'm going to pass in localhost port 8000, that, and it brought me right to it. Wow. Okay. View link stats. Get your shortened URLs instantly with 99.9% uptime guaranteed. That's a lie. All URLs are validated and protected against malicious content. That is true. Monitoring clicks, traps. Okay. What does that go to? Oh, it just goes to our API endpoints, which we are hidden now. Here we can see that we have our URL. So also go to our homepage. Okay, yeah. Oh gosh. Let's try it again. So https://www.codingwithroby.com. Let's shorten it. Did I break it? What the heck is going on? Yeah, there's the endpoint. Refresh it. What the heck is going on? Boom. All right. I crashed the application, I think. Let's try it again. Oh. Failed to copy. I have no idea what's going on. https://www.codingwithroby.com. There it is. We come in here. Different path that time. There it is. View stats. Performance data 4. We're not actually posting that though. We can see that it was clicked once in the last 30 days, last 7 days. Average day, click days for the last 3 days. Intel. Yep. I have a Mac. I don't think any of this I can't show. But this is really good. I mean, for something that I haven't had to do anything with, right? Let's just say proceed with Docker. This is really awesome because I'll proceed with phase 9 of Docker deployment. So let me create, this is actually quite interesting. It shows you the website, the date, the shortener, visit link will, my app's not running anymore. But I mean, there's quite a few buttons that's showing you exactly what you need. If this was a deployed app and you had your own URL that wasn't localhost, this would be a not bad starting guide. I mean, I haven't really went through all the code yet, but it seems like a really good starting spot. And I could see how junior developers might be able to go ahead and think they are creating something that's of really high value without actually doing much. But I can also see where back-end developers, or not back-end developers, more professional developers can start and build some really cool things with a very strong template at getting started. This is probably better than starting from scratch, right? I mean, I've been doing this for about an hour now, and we have some really cool stuff already. We're going to have Docker set up with a UI and a backend, and we can keep refining it. And I'm not going to refine it in this whole video, but you kind of get the point of what's happening. It's really, really interesting, and it's really showing us new ways. And especially if you didn't know, you could have different example.env files, different ways on how you can write PyTests. This could be a very great learning opportunity as well for many. Well, this is cool how it's going to say, let me update the README with comprehensive deployment. Let me completely reshape the README with comprehensive documentation for the URL shortener. So it's just absolutely updating everything. We have all of our scripts right here. Let's go inside our README. Wherever the heck that is. I don't even know where our README is. There it is. It's probably just going to be adding in Docker and some other information in here. Overall, this was an amazing starting point, and the project might not be structured the exact way we want it to be structured, right? There's going to be some issues, as with any type of LLM creating code from scratch. But this is by far the most powerful AI agent on the market when it comes to coding. I mean, I'm actually blown away. I mean, for someone who's been doing software development for 10 years or over 10 years now, and how to write every single variable and function from scratch, and now being able to just kind of create diagrams and modules and other things like that, that then allow AI to go, and then as a human reviewer, you can review. And I would be updating, I want to be doing as much stuff. If this is a professional application like that I'm going to be selling or I'm a client for or whatever, I would be doing it significantly smaller and much more smaller iterations and things like that. But this is quite amazing. This is quite amazing overall. And if you have not used Claude Code, now I'm using Claude Code Max because I started off with Pro and then I ran out of my time really soon after during this video. But for Claude Code Pro, that is perfect for many people who just want to kind of dive into coding a little bit, maybe start building their own app, learning how to code. You don't need Claude Code Max. You don't need Opus, which is their best model there is. You can use Sonnet, which is part of Claude Code Pro, and you'll be able to just start building. And it's addicting. It's so addicting. So go give that a try. And just like that, it's saying it has everything. Now, it may have a lot of this. I mean, we're seeing it. I mean, the application works, right? We tested it. Now, I don't know how great all the code is. It's quite unbelievable what it was able to do, but it's potentially bad security and hackable. Go ahead and I'll leave the code in the description. If you want to try it out, go for it. This was fun to build, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.